Welcome to the Spongecast, Investor Meets Director. As an activist investor, I like to chat to the companies that I invest in addition to producing various research notes, as you'll see on my website, spongeshare.com. Please note I may hold a position in the companies mentioned and I'm not offering investment advice. So today on the podcast, I'm joined by Matt Ball, Director at Armadale Capital. I'm a shareholder in Armadale, so really pleased to get a chance to have a chat to Matt eventually on the podcast. Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm going really well, Darren.
Good stuff. How's the COVID situation in Australia then, where you're based? Is it improving?
Yeah, it's definitely improving. We didn't get hit as bad as you guys did in the UK. Obviously, international travel has been a bit of a challenge, especially to Africa. But apart from that, it's improving.
Okay. So I've got some questions from some shareholders and myself, and we can go through a few of those in a moment. But just before we do, could you just give us a summary of Armadale and what you guys are doing, and obviously the Mahenge Graphite project for sort of any new investors that might not have actually heard of Armadale before?
Yeah, Armadale's main focus is the Mahenge Liandu Graphite project in Tanzania, which is a world-class project in probably one of the best provinces for graphite in the world, in the region of Mahenge in Tanzania. There's quite a few other significant graphite players directly around us, such as BlackRock and EcoGraph in that province, and there's also walkabouts nearby as well. So we're really in a hotspot for graphite.
Yeah, and it seems to be sort of kicking off in East Africa, doesn't it? There seems to be a lot of buzz around graphite at the moment. So a lot of these companies are sort of advancing at different stages. Obviously, Armadale's one of them. So yeah, interesting times, certainly as a shareholder.
Yeah, the market for graphite certainly improved dramatically over the last 12 months. So it's really looking positive for all of the graphite players over there.
Yeah, despite in addition to being on the board, you've actually got quite a significant shareholding yourself in the company, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got quite a reasonable position in the company. Yeah, I've been around since 2016, so quite a long association with the company.
Yeah. Okay. So you recently did a fundraise. I think you raised 850,000 with your existing sort of high net worth investor network, supportive shareholders that I think have been in previous rounds as well. And then I think you announced in your results that you've got some other quoted investments, which I think one of them sort of on paper just south of $1 million in value as well. So the company are well placed, like cash wise and financially. What are you planning to do with those funds?
Well, the main reason we raised the money was to really strengthen the balance sheet ahead of financing finalisation, which we're expecting in the second half of the year. It also gives us a strong cash balance to finalise the FEED study and provide working capital going forward. So we're not in a pressure position for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So obviously I've got some questions, and unsurprisingly, probably the top of the list is, when do we expect to get this mining license? So perhaps you can give us an update on your thoughts on that.
We've progressed through all the stages to get the mining license now. We've got the ESIA, which is Environmental and Social Impact Assessment, approved recently. We've also got the local content plan approved by the Tanzanian government. So the final step is now to get the mining license approved. So we're expecting that imminently.
Okay. Is that a case of it's literally, the other steps are complete? Is that just a case of it's sitting in some sort of minister's in tray to be signed, like so many are, or is there any other final steps to go through?
It'll just be signed off by a committee, which sits regularly now that we have all the pieces needed to get approval. That's the final stage.
You don't see any issues given, like, your literal neighbour BlackRock have got their mining license. So I can't, you don't see any issues, do you?
All the companies have gone through the same process that we've gone through, and it's taken a similar amount of time to get to this point. So,
okay, all right. So that really could land any day. Then is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what we're expecting.
Okay, all right, great stuff. And then of course that's like a big milestone for the company because it it de-risks the whole permitting side and what have you. What are the post the mining license? What are the steps to get to construction? I mean, is that mining license essentially the key that opens the door to closing out the financing and the remaining engineering steps to get to construction?
Yeah, getting the mine license is key to pushing forward with the financing and the binding offtakes, which is pretty key to progressing the project towards construction. Yeah.
Mm. And you mentioned previously that you had 2 NDAs in place on the financing. I think maybe some were hoping that financing might come prior to the mining license, but it sounds like the mining license really is a precursor to that. Are those guys still involved that you have the the NDAs with? Are they still there around the table ready to chat, assuming that we get this license?
Yeah, they're still interested, and obviously the market's improved since we initiated discussions with them. So the graphite sector's improved, the stock market's improved, Tanzania itself has improved as an investment destination. So, and now we're in a much stronger financial position than we were earlier. So we're looking in a very strong position.
Okay. And just like at a high level, what do you expect that sort of debt, or if you like, the finance package to look like? Will it be a mixture of debt, equity? You're going to try and go heavier on the debt side, given it's like a very quick payback according to the economics?
Yeah, we're trying to maximize the proportion of debt in the financing because the project has such a fast payback period, and that's what their discussions were on the same basis. So
yeah, and you mentioned offtake as well a minute ago. Would you see that featuring potentially as part of the overall package or independent?
It definitely could be part of the overall package.
Okay, and you've got some MOUs in place on with some potential off-takers, haven't you?
Yeah, we've got majority of the planned production already with MOUs with Chinese-based consumers of graphite concentrate. So we expect to convert some of those into binding over the coming months.
Okay, all right, that's good. You actually touched on the graphite market improving a second ago. This is something very difficult for investors to sort of visualize because there's no sort of spot price to graphite, and it's commonly basket based. So I can, as a copper investor, I can see the copper spot price, I can see nickel, what have you. But graphite's very difficult. Have you guys seen any improvement in the graphite space? I mean, obviously we're seeing graphite companies doing well at the moment. Like Sasira, they seem to have bounced back after a difficult period. Other graphite players emerging. Is this something you're seeing a positive backdrop to?
Yeah, we're seeing increased prices of graphite concentrate in China at the moment, and that's certainly what's driving the overall graphite space. Pretty much all of the companies have increased significantly on the back of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about China and graphite, and obviously, there's spherical graphite, but they're trying to reduce the amount of spherical graphite produced directly because it's not very eco-friendly. So natural flake graphite's emerging quite a bit. What about the US and Europe then? They're going to be big consumers, right? I mean, everyone's going to be building electric vehicles, right? And there's going to be gigafactories emerging, even one in the UK. Where are they going to get their graphite from then?
I think it's almost certain that almost all the new graphite's going to come from East Africa because the quality of the deposits there is superior to anywhere else, definitely, or anywhere else in the world, particularly non-Chinese deposits. So you could imagine that there's going to be a lot of these mines in East Africa getting developed over the coming years.
Okay, I mean, on that subject, obviously, BlackRock's probably one of our nearest neighbours, and they've seen a decent share price increase recently. I think they're valued about 80 million market cap now since they announced that, since they got their mining license, and also since POSCO announced some involvement on the financing side. Then there's Walkabout Resource and what have you. Is Ecograph's another one? Is that near you in Tanzania?
Yeah, Ecograph's also in the Mahenge region, similar to BlackRock and us.
Yeah, and I mean, I noticed I was doing a bit, someone had mentioned it on one of the Twitter groups, and I had a look at it, and they hit sort of 200 million market cap earlier in the year. I don't believe they're actually producing yet. But how would you relate Armadale to Ecograph? You know, I mean, obviously we're sitting at sub 25 million market cap now. They hit 200 million. That's sort of almost 10 times return on your money if we were in the same situation as Ecograph. So is that where Armadale could move to as a target? Why are they trading so much higher if they're not even producing yet?
They've looked at doing some downstream processing in Perth, Western Australia. So they're looking at producing some spherical graphite and more advanced products using the concentrate they're going to get out of their project in Mahenge. So
okay,
and they've seen quite a spike in their price on that basis.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So really, there's some speculation in there, is there? I mean, you know, for getting involved in becoming vertically integrated, shall we say?
Yeah, they've moved to a vertical integration model, which the market seems to have responded positively to.
Is that something, dare I say, Armadale could look at going forwards? I mean, I know you're focused very much on, you know, getting the financing over the line, getting to construction. I mean, obviously the project itself is, incredible return and IRR and what have you. But would Armadale consider perhaps something like this going forwards?
We have looked at different options in that space. Previously, we've been focused to try and get the project developed as soon as we can.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I was just going to say another question on Tanzania, Matt. Recently, there's been sort of like a power change there in terms of the sort of the ministry side. Is that going to be okay for Armadale? You don't see any implications there?
I think it's a bit of a more pro-investor, pro-foreign investor in particular government that's coming in at the moment. So there's certainly been a much more positive mood, both within the country and from foreign investors. So it's definitely a bit of a boost.
Yeah.
Particularly to the mining sector.
Yeah, and they've been pressing ahead with, like, I mean, all the other companies have been moving forward with their projects, haven't they? So, it's just one thing I always have my, a little niggle in the back of my mind, is a change of power something that's going to potentially disrupt? But it does seem that, all of the other companies operating in the region are progressing forward. So it sort of puts my mind at rest a bit, but I just wonder what your thoughts were on it.
Yes, it's definitely a more pro-investor mindset the government has now. Okay,
that's good. And I guess, like when we talk about the drivers, because one of the things that attracted me to Armadale was the if you like, the real quality of the project, which I don't think some people understand. Like the purities that we're talking about, like 97% plus, and then we've got, obviously it's high grade, so very low cost in the early years, allowing you to expand the mine. You did some test work recently with Xinhai in China, and you confirmed that you could take the Mahenge graphite right through to battery anode material. Were you pleased with the results of that?
Yeah, the results are very favourable. All the results we've done so far on all the test work we've done has been extremely favourable. And I guess having POSCO move into Blackrock, which is our neighbour with very similar mineralisation to what we have, really shows that Mahenge graphite is some of the best material in the world, and POSCO is probably one of the most credible offtake partners of any company globally.
Yeah, would you see potentially a lot of your product being targeted? I mean, I know you're going to be producing a graphite concentrate, and to a certain extent, it's mixed flake size and what have you. But the product that Armadale have got there's a good distribution in the flake sizes and the purity that you need for the battery feedstock, isn't there? So obviously you've done that test work now and confirmed that. Do you see that will be one of your biggest sort of interests from the offtake side? Is that some of the interest of the offtake agreements, MOUs you've got already now in place?
At the moment, we've been focusing on just selling the basket of graphite that we have, rather than trying to go towards EV producers. But our product will largely end up in the EV area.
Yeah, and of course, if you then look to, say, downstream processing, which you touched on earlier, you could potentially be consuming your own feed, I guess, in that scenario.
Yeah, that would be a possibility. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's mostly what I wanted to cover, and I think the big one was, just to really get an update on the mining license. So, once you've got that, and it's a big de-risking step for the project, what can investors expect to see for the remainder of this year? Are we do you think financing is achievable over the course of this year?
Yeah, we're definitely aiming to complete financing over this year, so we can start construction early next year. We'd also expect to see some binding offtakes and completion of the feed program as well.
Okay.
Just ahead of construction. So there's plenty.
So there really are, yeah. So really, a lot of the, if you like, the heavy lifting has been done. The actual drilling, the proving the resource up, the DFS, the permitting, pending obviously the final mining license. So it really is just a case now of closing out that sort of finance package. It's 39 million. So by comparison to what some other companies are trying to raise, I mean, BlackRock, I think, are after about 110 million or something. But in terms of like the economics versus the capex, it's very low, isn't it?
Yeah, that's largely a function of having very high grade near surface mineralization for the earliest years of the project, and then ramping up production later. So that's how we've managed to get the capital cost quite lower than other comparable companies. So it really sets Armadale apart from other companies in the graphite space.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sensible step, is like reducing the capex up front and then using free cash flow to expand the project in later years. I think you're going to go from something like 60,000 to 120,000 tons per annum. Is that right?
Yeah, in that region, slightly less than 120 in the
right.
But yeah, starting around 60,000 tons.
Yeah, and the key thing for me, I suppose, is that the timeline. Like, I mean, there's other junior mining companies that I'm invested in that are, for example, in financing stages now, or just at the end of the DFS, and they can be looking at 3 or 4 years before they're going to be developing. But assuming you get this mining license and you close out the financing this year, and you complete the feed study, of course, which is you're planning to do, the construction timeline here is only about 12 months, isn't it? So it's theoretical to say that if you start construction early next year, that you can be producing a year later. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the timeline. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I think you've covered pretty much everything I wanted to discuss. So thanks very much for your time, Matt. And perhaps as we get a few more milestones in the bag, we can have a more regular chat.
Yeah, I look forward to it, Darren.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Until next time.
Okay. See ya.